What's going on, family? I'm Angel. This is the Vazquez Report. And on this episode of the show, we're going to cover the end of the Iran war, the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding, and finally putting this whole thing to bed. We're going to get into everything on this episode of the show. Stay tuned.
It's just after 1 o'clock in the morning here in Switzerland and in France, where President Trump is still at this dinner with the Macrons. Earlier today, he told me about this Memorandum of Understanding, that he didn't know if it was the kind of document that he should be signing, but he did sign a physical copy of it. And
yes.
Bravo. Good job.
Thank you, everybody.
Great job. Bravo.
we were told, or we have been told, that there is some kind of a photo that exists. So we will see that at some point, and he will be surrounded by the gilded touches of Versailles, which President Trump was very excited to see because it is not just gold leaf there. He says it is the real thing. As for what is in this Memorandum of Understanding, today is the day that it all came out. There are 14 points. It's not until point number 8 that you get to the line where Iran cannot pursue a nuclear weapon. There is this $300 billion reconstruction fund that the United States will be directing and facilitating, but not donating to directly. And there is this line that the United States has to lift sanctions and unfreeze frozen Iranian assets. The United States insists that this is something that is performance-based, but
What was cool was as soon as President Trump signed that Memorandum of Understanding to put an end to the war in Versailles, France, you could see that stocks rose like at a rapid pace, and crude oil plummeted as well. It was cool as a Californian to see that gas was finally under $5 a gallon. Finally, like right next to where the national average was when I saw it, it was like at $3.99. And usually in California, gas is like $2 more than everywhere else. But let's see this financial boom.
President Trump's framework peace deal with Iran sending oil prices lower this week and raising expectations that the biggest inflation shock of the year may be fading. A 60-day clock ticks to work out a permanent deal and the future of Iran's nuclear program. But here is the VP touting the deal on Thursday.
The president's peace plan in Iran is already bearing real fruits for the American people. Last night, 12.5 million barrels of oil went through the Strait of Hormuz. That is a high since the beginning of the conflict. I've seen skeptics of the deal. People say the Iranians will never change their behavior. Well, maybe that's true, and if so, they don't get any of the benefits of the bargain. But isn't it worth trying?
Markets cheering the prospect of a calmer energy market with oil falling to the lowest level in more than 3 months, while average gasoline prices are below $4 a gallon, worse so on Friday. The big question now, if the deal holds, will we see an economic breakthrough here at home, giving Republicans a boost heading into the midterm elections?
And what happens on the oil front? With Friday, President Trump saying the Strait will reopen, but all the caveats that Anna has pointed out. So that remains, of course, a key concern.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to complete the picture on what we're seeing in the broader market story then, so stocks are up, futures are up, treasuries are up and yields are down.
It wasn't just Trump signing the MOU in Versailles, France to end the war between the United States and Iran. It was also new developments when the Vice President of the United States, Vance, went to Switzerland to talk to the Pakistani Prime Minister and also the Iranian regime and their respective bureaucrats. There has been some new developments in the negotiations and more positive reinforcements when it came to what was agreed upon between the two nations to end the war. For more on the specifics, let's hear from Vance directly.
Roadmap for technical talks over the next 60 days. A U.S. diplomat involved in the talks told Fox News some of the discussion was focused on clarifying the confusing messaging on the Strait of Hormuz to ensure it will remain open, adding that robust discussions on all elements of the nuclear deal are ongoing. This morning, Vice President J.D. Vance said the U.S. along with Qatar will have some oversight over the unfrozen Iranian funds and that some could go to purchasing U.S. farm goods. He also made a major announcement on access to Iran's nuclear program.
This is probably what we're most excited about as Americans. The Iranians have agreed to invite IAEA inspectors back into their country. That is a major milestone for the American people and the first step in permanently denuclearizing or permanently ending a nuclear weapons program in Iran. And that's exactly what we wanted to do. That's exactly what we asked to happen.
The Iranians also acknowledge major progress in the talks, adding that a deconfliction cell for Lebanon will be the first real test of the understanding. Israel and Hezbollah did not trade fire on Sunday for the first time since March 2nd, according to the UN. In response, Israel lifted all restrictions for civilians in the northern part of their country. In a call with Fox News on Sunday, President Trump said he was disappointed Israel can't put Hezbollah away. The leader of Hezbollah, Naim Qassem, gave a televised speech over the weekend.
It seems like right after J.D. Vance got done talking about the positive developments when it came to the negotiations between the United States delegation and the Iranian delegation in Switzerland, along with Pakistan being the mediator of those negotiations, the left-wing pundits, namely CNN and their band of idiots, decided to throw cold water on all the things that happened to end the war. And it wasn't just them. Scott Jennings had to step in and actually correct all the false narrative that's been going on after the end of the war happened. But let's first get to the Democrat side of it, particularly sports columnist and sports journalist turned political pundit, Jamel Hill.
And not only that, it's just they're not going to be able, the conservative position is never going to be able to outrun the reason the deal was torn up in the first place. It's because of an inherent jealousy of Barack Obama, since the president is insecure. And he did something that actually moved all of this backwards because of his own level of insecurity and hatred of the president that was before him. And that is, we are never going to be able to, we're never going to be able to get up under that.
But I think a lot of the criticism right now against Donald Trump is driven by the fact that the critics hate him as well. And so they're unwilling to look at this.
There's plenty.
The idea that Trump is jealous of Obama while being hamstrung in both presidencies is completely ridiculous. There's no way in hell, in a logical mind, that you could ever think that Trump is jealous of anybody, let alone President Obama. If anything, he has serious disdain for Obama and all the anti-American policies that were passed under his tenure as president, both terms. So, if anything, it has nothing to do with jealousy and everything to do with the fact that he just doesn't like him. But let's get more into the left side of the thinking when it came to what was going on in the minds of Democrats all over at the end of the war, where somebody tried to challenge the whole notion that this is a good deal or what the deal was exactly, and Scott Jennings had to set him straight. So let's look into that.
Do you hear what Donald Trump just said? That the U.S. controls the Strait of Hormuz, that Iran is destroyed as a country. So then why are we negotiating with Iran? If the situation is so badly, it's so bad for Iran, why do we have the vice president going to Switzerland to negotiate some sort of like end to this conflict?
So the alternative is we would just keep bombing a country in perpetuity, or is the alternative you bomb, you get them to the table, and then you get an outcome? The outcome is no nuclear weapons, and we try to get the region stable with our allied partners over there.
So let me get this straight. The same people who are criticizing Trump for not ending the war are the same people saying that he should keep on bombing Iran into unconditional surrender and put more of our American troops and the Israeli troops in danger to get everybody wiped out so they could effectively do a complete regime change and for us to be there longer, sapping the American economy and sending gas prices through the roof, instead of just bombing, getting them to the table, and then initializing an agreement and then finalizing that agreement rather than doing it the other way. Make it make sense. You were talking shit about President Trump and his administration for not ending the war, and then when he does it, you're talking shit about the way he's doing it. Make up your mind. You double standard Democrats, well, Democrats according to President Trump. So come on, man. Be consistent with your narrative. Stop moving the goalposts. There's more opposition to the MOU and the deal to end the war than just the Democrats. There was also the Israeli diplomats and probably Netanyahu, but not publicly, who were throwing cold water on the deal as well, prompting Vice President J.D. Vance to set the record straight and to remind Israel exactly who it is that they're throwing cold water on and how we help them militarily along with other ways that the United States of America aids Israel. Just as a reminder, just in case they forgot.
Now, I saw the Axios report, that Netanyahu is fuming. That's not reflective of the conversations that I've had with him, but maybe he's saying something to somebody else that he's not saying to me. What I will say, and this does bother me, is that you've seen people within Bibi's cabinet who have come out and attacked the deal, and in some ways very personally attacked the President of the United States. And I guess my message to them would be twofold. Number one, Donald J. Trump is the only head of state in the entire world who is sympathetic to the nation of Israel at this moment in time. And he happens to be the head of state of the world's superpower. If I was in the cabinet of the Israeli government, I might not be attacking the only powerful ally that I have anywhere left in the entire world. And the second message I would give to some of those cabinet members, Bibi, to his credit, has not gone down this path, but to some of these cabinet members in Israel who are attacking the President of the United States, the other thing that I would say is that over the last 3 months, 2/3 of the defensive weapons that have protected your homeland have been built by American hands and paid for by American tax dollars. The problem for Israel is not Donald J. Trump. And anybody in Israel who thinks their biggest problem is the President of the United States needs to wake up and smell the reality of the situation that country is in. Thank you all.
And shout out to JD Vance for saying what everybody else has been thinking. Israel, shut up. Benjamin Netanyahu, shut up. Israeli diplomats, shut your motherfucking ass up. You got 2/3 of your weapons from the United States military, from the aid that we've been giving to your country. The Iron Dome technology that's been helping your country avoid being bombed, that came from the United States. So it would behoove you to stop talking shit to President Trump and the Trump administration and the United States in general, because we're the biggest ally you have. And in fact, we may be one of the only ones, not necessarily on paper because of the Abraham Accords, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm not anti-Israel. I'm not anti-Jew. I don't like Netanyahu, and I've said this before. That's my take on it. And I'm glad that JD Vance got that off of his chest, because it seems like he wanted to. After JD Vance cleared up all the hate that he was getting from Netanyahu behind closed doors and the Israeli diplomats, General Jack Keane, a retired 4-star general, reminded everyone who was listening what kind of diplomacy the Trump and his administration were involved in to put an end to the war between the Iranian regime and the United States and Israel. The type of diplomacy that he was speaking about was coercive diplomacy, was getting them to the table against their own will and then having them acquiesce to our demands in a way that benefits the United States and not Iran, along with President Trump saying what he'll do if Iran violates the deal.
We're doing very well with respect to the Hormuz Strait. We took in more oil yesterday than has ever gone through the strait. We have two things. We have an open strait, and we have a country that will never have a nuclear weapon. Will never, ever have a nuclear weapon. And I think Iran, I can say on a sort of a different scale, is in its own way working out very well. And we're doing very well in terms of negotiating a fair and reasonable deal. If Iran doesn't live up to their agreement, or if they're not behaving, I will do what I have to do.
Who better to explain that than somebody who is actually a general in the military? Let's hear his perspective.
Well, let me just state, the overall objective here and what we're really doing is we moved into a major diplomatic phase, obviously, and we shut down the instruments of war, trying to achieve the same objectives that we were trying to do with the instruments of war. And we know the reasons, the political and economic issues inside the United States, and we got that. Now, this is coercive diplomacy. And that's truly what it is. And President Trump has emphasized it time and time again. If you don't do X, I'm going to do Y. That is coercive diplomacy. And what we're trying to do here, Maria, is bend our adversary here to our will to meet the maximum objectives that President Trump is attempting to achieve here. And I think there are going to be bumps along the road here as we go into this. And this is early days for sure. And what we're seeing here, and I really appreciate, I don't think we're going to get where we want to get with just a negotiating team. And by that I mean, I believe from time to time the president is going to have to step in and clear the air, so to speak. And it happened this weekend. Remember, one of the things in the deal was it was written in the Memorandum of Understanding, one of the 14 points, that when it came to the Straits of Hormuz, the Iranians, after 60 days, were going to negotiate with Oman and deal with the administration of the Straits, restrictions, etc., which obviously implied control of the Straits. President Trump cleared that up, even though that's what was written. He said the Straits are going to be open and free for the next 60 days and for the 60 days after that. And if they're not, then I'm going to take complete control of the Straits myself and start charging fees. All right? That is an example of coercive diplomacy, and I think we're going to need that from time to time to clear the air here in terms of what is really happening. Because
That's all for this episode of the show. I appreciate you guys staying on this long. How about we leave the end of this episode with a funny joke? Until I see you next time.
I don't care what a restaurant looks like from the outside. I don't even care what it's called. I care about one thing. Does the food hit?
I walk into what I think is called Cafe Beach Naga, and I notice I'm the only person in here. Not always a bad sign. I'm immediately greeted by the owner of the restaurant at my table.
I have one funny question for you. How do you pronounce the name of this restaurant? But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
It sounds like something else.
Beautiful name for woman.
And I came in there hungry. She knew that. After explaining to her what I was in the mood for, she pointed to this right here.
How do you say that?
Phở đặc biệt.
Fuck that beat.
Yes. Phở đặc biệt.
Yep, that's
okay.
That's what we're gonna do.
You know, đặc biệt.
All right. The moment you've all been waiting for. Is the fuck that big actually good? Does it hit?